Hello, good morning and welcome to TVAM. New studios, a new news service and a new national network. And welcome to our two main programmes, Daybreak from 6 to 7 and Good Morning Britain, of which you just saw the opening titles, from 7 to 9:15. And indeed a special thank you to everyone who made those titles possible. The 4 skydivers, the 1,000 men of HMS Hermes, the 6,000 noble citizens of Bristol on a Sunday morning, and of course the 917 pigeons in Trafalgar Square.
Hello. All 5 of us will be co-hosting Good Morning Britain during the coming year. David and I are here for the first month. During the next hour we'll be completing our final preparations, and we look forward to welcoming you back here at 7 for a programme that we hope will be full of surprises for you and sometimes, no doubt, for us too.
In the meantime, from 6 to 7 every day, Daybreak, which Angela and I will be taking in turns to present this month. Daybreak will come to you from our newsroom upstairs, and in fact I look forward to bringing you the latest from TVAM News in a couple of minutes, with further news reports after Daybreak in Good Morning Britain.
For the first few months I'm going to be presenting our programmes at the weekend. On Saturdays we'll be taking a relaxed look at sport, movies and the whole world of entertainment and leisure. On Sundays we'll look back at the week and ask people with a point of view what they made of it. We've not forgotten the children either, as you'll see if you spend the weekend in our company.
And that really is the basic plan. We're now about to take our first commercial break, and on this occasion the proceeds won't be coming to us here at TVAM. Instead we're donating them to a charity for the mentally handicapped, one which we feel that we'd all like to support. After that, well, as you've just heard, we'll be underway with Daybreak, and indeed my colleague Robert has now just left us here in the main Good Morning Britain studio and is winging his way up to the newsroom, and he'll be with you in just a moment. After that, of course, there's Good Morning Britain. Finally, we'd just like to say thanks very much for joining us this morning on what's obviously a very, very important day for us. And we do hope that you're going to stay tuned to us not just for this morning's programmes, but every morning, every day of the week, at least for the next 8 years. Good Morning Britain.
Morning, I'm Ian Melrose, I'm from Walls, and I'd like to welcome you to Walls Breakfast Television. It's my job to make sure there's plenty for everyone. We'll feature some big and tasty names, so make sure you tune in to Walls Sausages and Bacon. No other breakfast television tastes as good.
Hello, good morning if you've just joined us. It's just after 6 on Tuesday the 1st of February, and this is Daybreak. The main news headlines this morning. Well, there's no Russian reaction so far, even though it's now 9 o'clock in Moscow, to President Reagan's offer to scrap all intermediate land-based nuclear missiles. The water strike, well, there's some faint hiss of hope there, with the conciliation services offering some new proposals. A Labour MP is saying that the Argentine exocets, which did us so much damage in the Falklands, could have contained components from up to 40 British firms, and we'll be getting a report from him. And we have a report on that 8-year-old Eastbourne boy with cancer of the spine who had an operation in America and is now back. The weather, well, the weather seems to be rather windy and wintry throughout. But in this quarter of an hour or so, we'll be taking a more detailed look at the weather over the whole of the country, with particular attention to farmers, and we'll have special news for farmers. But first of all, a general look at the main national and international news. As I say, the Soviet Union has not reacted yet to President Reagan's offer to meet the Soviet leader, Mr. Andropov, to sign an agreement banning all medium-range land-based nuclear weapons. The offer of a summit meeting was made in an open letter to the people of Europe by the American Vice President George Bush at a dinner in West Berlin last night. And from Berlin, Tony Cattrall reports.
The offer from President Reagan of a summit meeting with the Soviet leader, Yuri Andropov, was calculated to cut the ground out from not only the demonstrators, but also West Germany's opposition Social Democrats going into next month's general election. According to the Reagan letter, he's willing to meet Andropov at any time and in any place to sign an agreement banning US and Soviet intermediate-range missiles from the face of the Earth. But even if the demonstrators had realized the offer was going to be made, and no one, not even the journalists who are usually given advance copies, had any indication, it would have cut little ice. When Vice President Bush read Reagan's open letter to the specially invited guests, they were stunned. A meeting between the two world leaders is what Chancellor Helmut Kohl has been pushing for. But on sober reflection, even he will see that it's only a restatement of Reagan's long-held position. Tony Catterall for TV AM News.
Sorry about the quality on that there. At home, the water strike enters its 9th day today, with more than 22,000 people now deprived of running water. Another 6 million people are being advised to boil their drinking water, but attempts to find a settlement do go on. The employers are going back to the Conciliation Service, ACAS, today to discuss the latest peace proposal that ACAS has put forward. This involves, it seems, an increase in earnings by extending productivity schemes and also by paying wages in a different way, credit transfer instead of weekly cash, which it seems could help. Anita Findlay went down to the water workers' picket line in Hampton to test their reaction to these latest proposals.
At England's biggest waterworks, the vigil goes on through the night with a fire and a couple of jacket potatoes to keep the men warm. But is the latest initiative from ACAS enough to get them out of the cold?
Well, to me, it's a similar hodgepodge of what they did before. And this productivity deal they put in, it means exactly the same as all of their productivity deals in the past, which means eventually a reduction of staff.
I'm willing to go the whole way. I think we've got in a situation where we can't turn back, and we've got to face the music.
Yeah, stay out. It's pointless going back now, is it?
We've got to see.
Been out a week. We might as well stay out.
The employers are back at ACAS later this morning, and union leader Ron Keating has described that as the best news he's heard since the dispute began. But he could be underestimating the resolve of his own members. Certainly it seems that a new productivity deal with no extra cash could be difficult to sell to the men here. Anita Findlay for TVAM News.
Abroad, community groups in San Francisco are saying that they will take the city authorities there to court to get permission in order to hold anti-British protests when the Queen visits California at the end of this month. One such request has already been turned down, but the leader of one Irish Republican group has promised to hold noisy demonstrations anywhere the Queen sets foot in California during her 10-day visit. In case you hadn't noticed, and I don't really see how you could help it, television history is being made at this very moment. TV AM is on the air, ITV's first ever breakfast programme. One of the first people to offer his congratulations this morning was Lord Thompson, who is chairman of the Independent Broadcasting Authority.
Rippon, TVAM News, it's a very important day for us. How do you rate it?
Very important day for independent broadcasting, and I wish you every possible success.
Can we ask you, sir, are you going to be a breakfast television viewer?
Yes, I will be a regular breakfast television viewer. I'm kitting myself out with a portable television set, especially to lie in bed and look at you.
Well, our special telephone lines will be open while TVAM is on the air, and anyone who'd like to make any comment on us or find out more about any of the items in this programme can ring this number. It is 01, that is if you're outside London, 01 404 0401. Now let's hear about farming from Barry Wilson.
Thank you, Robert. The Minister for Agriculture, Peter Walker, will still not confirm or deny industry rumours that farm incomes rose last year by a record 50%. All will be revealed when the annual review white paper is published later this month, but there is no doubt that agriculture had a very good year in 1982. I asked Mr. Walker why agriculture was doing so well while the rest of the economy was in trouble.
Well, before answering that, can I say, as the person privileged to be almost the first appearance upon the new television programme, to wish it every possible success in the years to come, and to obviously wish the farming slot every success. I'm sure it will have a very good and constructive impact on British farming. But as far as farm incomes in 1982, yes, they will be substantially up, but of course they needed to be substantially up to recover from the very big drop in real terms that had taken place in the years before. And British farming, like the rest of the economy, was affected by the recession in a big and substantial way. And I'm very pleased that the high productivity and good production and good weather last year combined together to bring a substantial increase in farm incomes.
But not all farmers are doing well. The pig industry is deep in the throes of what is now being described as the worst slump for 25 years. Prices are 10 to 20% less than a year ago, and no relief can be offered by market analysts. Desperate traders may now actually use the private storage subsidies that start today, but one sceptical producer said yesterday that only a major outbreak of foot and mouth disease in Denmark can save us now. Milk sales are still dropping, and the Got a Lot of Bottle campaign has had no effect so far. A year ago, a Banbury publican teamed up with a local dairy farmer to sell milk over the bar. It was a small success, and the Milk Board was persuaded to extend the trial to 30 Midlands pubs last June. Sales took everyone by surprise, and the board has now decided to install dispensers in 1,000 pubs by the spring. Over 300 are already operating, so we went down to a pub in Baker Street Station in London to see how trade is going.
2 pints of milk, please.
Well, what do you think about this milk in pubs then?
I think it's great. I like one between a Guinness.
You like it in between a Guinness, do you?
In between.
Michael, why did you install this milk dispenser?
We installed it a couple of weeks ago owing to the great demand for milk.
This was because of demand, was it?
Yeah.
And how's it been going?
Been going lovely. We've got one customer that comes in at night time, has 4 or 5 pints.
Really?
Yeah.
Does he have anything in between?
No, last night he had 6 pints.
Good Lord.
Then starts having his drink.
So how much do you reckon you're selling now?
About between 9 and 11 gallons.
That's
about 80, 90 pints.
Yeah. So you're happy with it?
Yeah, lovely.
And how much is it?
25 pence half, 50 pence a pint.
So that's quite a good profit margin for you.
Yeah, very nice.
I suppose we'll be getting beer and milk bars soon. Let's have a look at the weather now all around the country, but especially for farmers, from David Philpott.
Thank you very much, Robert. And after the gales and blizzards of yesterday, it looks as though we're going to have gales today and possibly some blizzards, but there won't be many blizzards. The very severe storm crossed over the Highlands during the night, and the weather at 4 o'clock this morning showed wind almost everywhere, as a result of which there was probably no frost. There's still some rain in the south. That will move away, and some quite cold air getting into the north. And so it looks as though the forecast for the day is some rain remaining in the extreme south. It will soon clear away, however, but it may be rather later from the Channel Islands. It will then turn showery in almost all areas, and this will become wintry. And in the north, there could well be quite a continuous period of rain or snow at some time during the day. For the outlook for the next 2 days, the showers will be generally dying out. It will become mainly dry tomorrow, but there could be some more snow preceding some warmer air on Thursday. Then for the next 2 days, to help your planning after that, that's Friday and Saturday, it looks as though we could get mild in the south on Friday, and Saturday turning yet again with another cold blast down from the north. Over the continent, if anyone's interested in early travel there, it looks as though it's wet and mild, but our colder weather will soon move in there by this evening. I suppose if the farmers would like a little bit of hope, there's a lovely bit of weather law that if February gives much snow, a fine summer it doth foreshow. Perhaps that will satisfy you.
Thanks very much, David. Just how much more snow can we really expect?
I should think, looking at the near outlook for 5 days or so, quite a lot. There'll be drifting snow in the north with the heavy winds bringing these showers.
Is this perhaps the winter at last, do you think, we were getting? Because it hasn't been much of a winter so far.
There's certainly been a marked change in the last 2 days, and we're now going to have cold blasts followed by slightly milder blasts in the south.
How much, in fact, are you really able to say what the weather's going to be like, say, a week ahead?
One has a very good idea in general terms, like it's going to alternate between cold and mild, but I can't say it's going to be very mild at 12 o'clock on Friday, but at 1300 it's going to be cold.
Good enough anyway, thanks very much. Well, we'll take a break now and be back in a minute with more news and more weather and full details of all the sports. So we'll hope you'll be back with us then after the break on Daybreak in a few minutes' time.
Good morning, welcome to Good Morning Britain for the very first time after months, years of preparation. We have at last what we've always wanted, you. a real audience. The first Good Morning Britain, and let's hope the first of very many.
It's Tuesday, February the 1st, obviously an historic day for us here at TVAM, and we hope a day that at least has an interesting start for everyone watching. We also hope you'll enjoy watching until 9:15, which is when we go off the air. Welcome back. Well, we were going to talk about gambling, but we're going to do that later now. Now the overnight sports news from Nick Owen.
Good morning, and in a moment our first chance for a good look at the new routine that could win us a gold medal in the European Figure Skating Championships, which start today in Germany. But first news that the Football League could be taken to the High Court by Derby County. Derby's £10,000 fine for allegedly poaching Roy McFarlane from Bradford City has been confirmed, and under threat of a £200,000 compensation claim from Bradford, Derby will appeal again, this time to the High Court. Meanwhile, Liverpool are making their first venture into Sunday football for 90 years. They'll meet Brighton in the 5th round of the FA Cup on Sunday, the 19th of February, after Spurs refused to play Everton on the same day at Goodison Park. The European Figure Skating Championships start in Dortmund today, and British hopes rest on the young Richmond ice dance team of Karen Barber and Nikki Slater. It's fair to say that until the recent training injury to our reigning European and world champions Jane Torville and Christopher Dean, the best Karen and Nikki might have hoped for was silver. But clearly, they are quite determined now to go one better.
Never go into a competition trying to come second, because I think anybody that does that, it's not really worth competing. On the other hand, it's a good thing that it gives us a spur, because they are so good, we aim at them. And we've managed to beat all the national champions apart from the Americans and Russians and British. So apart from that, we're doing well at the moment. I think it makes you hungry for success. You know, we're trying even harder now.
Special preview there of the routine that will challenge the Russians this week.
Now woman's own stands on its own. All the things I need, all I like to read. Woman's own, you know what I like.
Vichy Skincare brings a new feeling of freshness to your morning. Tonic of the morning. It's surprisingly new and simple because it's smooth, like a milk. But on your skin, it feels so refreshing, just like a tonic. So in just one step, your skin is quickly cleansed and toned, and you're off to a fresh new day with the fresh new feeling of tonic of the morning. From Vichy.
Off you go then, Kev.
Be opening tins next.
The Tefal coffee maker. So simple, even Kevin can use it.
Don't renew your car insurance until you've checked it against a free AA auto quote. Dial 100 and ask for free phone AA auto quote.
Welcome back. It's all go here at the moment. It's just after 7:30 and this is Good Morning Britain. Coming up soon, the problem of children pulled two ways by their parents. We're also going to be looking at the wonderful world of television and be going on the trail of a mystery cat the size of a puma. But first, the news headlines from Robert Key.
Thank you, Anna. Well, several Ghanaians are reported this morning to have been drowned during a stampede at Lagos Harbour in Nigeria. They were trying to get aboard 2 ships departing for Ghana, and they were some of the 2 million illegal immigrants who, of course, have been slung out from Nigeria. The midnight deadline for their forced departure has now passed. As I say, 2 million of them were declared illegal, and in the centre of Lagos, armed officers have begun searching buildings for any Ghanaians left behind. In Ghana itself, the village of Afla, which is the main re-entry point for deportees, has been completely overrun by refugees on their way home. Here at home, the government spending plans for the next financial year are out today. Treasury Secretary Leon Britton is going to announce them to the House of Commons this afternoon. They're an important part of preparations for the budget, of course, and for any general election that might be coming, as Peter Day, our economics correspondent, explains.
It looks as though the government will have far more room for manoeuvre and much more money to spend than it bargained for. Public spending in the year ending in March has apparently undershot the target by some 1,000 or 2,000 million pounds, an enormous amount, but what does it mean?
It means that the Chancellor probably has about £2.5 billion to give away in his budget, which means that he will have a sizable amount of money to spend on either the consumer, to give away income tax cuts or raise income tax thresholds and bans, or give away a substantial amount of money to industry in the form of a 1% reduction in the national insurance surcharge, for instance.
But the Chancellor still faces a dilemma. Fears of a public spending spree ahead of an election and higher inflation as a result could knock the pound hard. Senior ministers get a chance to debate the budget proposals at a cabinet meeting later this week. But this afternoon's white paper is a first chance to see just how cleverly the Chancellor is walking an economic tightrope. Peter Day for TVAM News.
Still no reaction from the Soviet Union to President Reagan's offer to meet the Soviet leader, Mr. Andropov, to sign an agreement banning all medium-range land-based nuclear weapons. The offer of such a summit meeting was made last night in an open letter to the people of Europe by the American Vice President, Mr. George Bush, at a dinner in West Berlin. Community groups in San Francisco who say that they're going to take the city authorities to court to get permission in order to hold anti-British protests when the Queen visits California at the end of this month. One such request has already been turned down, but the leader of one Irish Republican group has promised to hold noisy demonstrations anywhere where the Queen sets foot in California during her 10-day visit. There are hopes this morning of a settlement, very dim hopes, but there are some hopes of a settlement over fees being paid to actors for commercials screened by Channel 4 and indeed by TVAM. The Council of the Actors Union Equity will meet later on today to consider a new offer from the Institute of Practitioners in Advertising, which is the body which represents most advertising agencies. No details of this offer are available yet, but the fees dispute has seriously cut back the number of commercials on Channel 4 and at one stage did threaten the launch of TVAM. However, it didn't succeed. Although equity leaders were reported last night as finding the new offer, is much more attractive, it still isn't certain whether the Equity Council will find it good enough to call off the dispute. Now back to Anna and David.
We'll be having some more sport. We're sorry that it was cut rather short this morning. Now the best and the worst of the weather from Commander David Philpott. Commander.
Thank you, Anna. Let's have a look at what we expect the weather to do until this evening. Starting in the southwest, here you'll have the best of the sunny intervals, but also some showers. These will be wintry later, with snow over the hills and moors. At around 5 centigrade, it will feel cold in the fresh wind, so I'd get that bacon sizzling away. For the central and eastern chunk of the country, some rain in the extreme south to start with, but mostly a day of scattered rain or sleet showers, although the sleet looks as though it may be delayed, especially in the northwest, and here they'll turn to snow much later on, probably tonight. I think the strong northwesterly wind there will moderate later, but I'd add a thermos of tea to take out after my bacon breakfast. And in all northern areas, showers of snow which could merge into more continuous falls in the north this morning. The gales may cause some drifting and certainly won't allow temperatures to rise above a cold 3 centigrade. For tomorrow, snow showers dying out, but cold with widespread night frost. On Thursday we could have some more general snow, so keep up the intake of hot food. David.
This week, perms make history. No, not the curly kind, but the straightforward treble chance. 60 years ago today, Littlewoods handed out its first Pools coupons outside Manchester United's ground. It It wasn't a great success at first. Only 35 coupons were returned. And the princely winnings that first week were just £2, 12 shillings, if you remember what shillings were. But by the 30s, making a fortune on the pools had become the dream of millions. In 1934, that fortune meant all of £1,000 for this Stoke-on-Trent family. Enough to get one Potteries housewife out of her pinny. And curlers met treble chance in Manchester 2 years later, when this lady picked up a cheque for £3,500. But the biggest of them all is this record cheque for £882,000, and that went to a lady who'd never filled in a pools coupon before in her life. It's big money and big business nowadays. The odds against scooping the jackpot are more than 1 billion to 1. But it doesn't stop 12 million of us filling in our coupons every week all the same. We've all got dreams of what we do with the pool's fortune. Some celebrate with the biggest party their money can buy, but others, like Mike Vickery, who won £750,000, are much more sober. Mike, what was it like winning all that money? What was the nicest thing about it?
I think coming to London, a nice 3 hectic days in London.
Had you been to London before?
Oh yes, many times, but as a coach driver, bringing tourists around.
Have you given up your job?
Oh yes.
How do you live now? How's your lifestyle changed?
Well, it hasn't changed to that extent. I've moved house, bought a new car, that sort of thing, but I basically do nothing all day now.
Do you enjoy doing nothing all day?
Yes, I do. Funny, I haven't got enough time to do nothing.
Really?
Yeah,
you seem extremely happy. It obviously hasn't ruined your life like it has some
no,
people's.
No, I'm very sort of relaxed and sort of just get on with it.
Do you still do the pools?
Oh yes, every week.
Why?
I think it's the excitement of looking at the television on a Saturday afternoon and seeing if my numbers are there.
But as it really it's changed your life so little, I mean, you've bought a bigger house, you've bought a new car, what's the point of doing it?
Well, the excitement. I never ever dreamt I would win the pools, especially the amount I won. It's just excitement.
Professor Frank George, you're a specialist in probability theory, and you encourage other people to gamble by giving them systems, don't you?
You could say that, I suppose. Encourage is putting it a bit strongly.
Is there any probability theory which can really encompass a proper gambling system?
It depends entirely what you mean by properly encompass. All it can do
Can it help you win? Can you win?
It can help you win, but it doesn't ensure you win, obviously. If one had a system which ensured winning, they wouldn't bother to play the games.
You'd be rich.
Well, yeah, well, you might be rich, but everyone would know in the end, so nobody would be rich. All it would do is spoil football. They wouldn't bother to play if they knew what the result was going to be, would they?
You're a professor and you're a cybernetics expert, computers, you work in computers. Has this sort of set you aside from your academic colleagues? Do they look down on what you do and think you're a bit of a charlatan?
Well, they may well do, for all I know. If they do, they don't tell me so. And I wouldn't regard it in that light at all, needless to say.
No.
You wouldn't expect me to.
Of course not.
The point is that I have done a lot of forecasting for departments with the government, the Treasury, and for NATO and things like that, so it seems a natural extension to forecast things like football and horse racing, which I happen to be interested in.
How successful have you been?
It's difficult to... One of the problems here is that you can do very much better than the average forecaster, and if you don't win, the vast majority of people don't want to know anyway. It gives me a great deal of satisfaction to do very well, even if I don't win. But we do win, of course, from time to time.
How profitable is it for you? I mean,
I don't think of it.
Are you making a lot of money out of it?
Oh, no. I don't think of it really
Why
as
not? I mean, I don't understand. If you have a theory that works, why you're not?
You said it worked, I didn't. All I said was it improved your chances.
Ah.
It doesn't mean it necessarily wins the jackpot or anything like that. I didn't think of it really as a business undertaking in the first place. I think it mainly as fun. I'm not against winning a lot of money if I can, but so far we've never done what our friend here has done, hit the jackpot.
Have you got a quick prediction for us?
You mean about life or about...
Something that's going to happen, I mean, the rugby game you were talking about before, say?
Yeah, well, if you want a prediction on that, I'm quite clear. France are going to win the championship and probably the Grand Slam.
Shame, David.
Thank you very much indeed, Anna. Well, I think the only way to win a small fortune on the pools is to invest a large one, I fear, with those odds. Most of the newspaper astrologers today include a prediction for the coming year if it's your birthday today. And Anne Petrie in the Daily Star says, a successful and prosperous year lies ahead if you can blow your trumpet just a little more. Well, I suppose we are all shrinking violets. And Mr. J.L. Scranton sent us a letter which says that, pointed out, arrived yesterday, thanks to British Telecom, it was posted last July, says that we share our birthday today with Sir John Knott and Sir Stanley Matthews, and had we noticed that the one thing they have in common is that they both occasionally run down the left wing. Well, thank you very much indeed for that thought, Mr. Scranton. Here at TVAM, our aim is to run down the left and the right wings and run them up almost equally. We'll be right back.
This is the most aerodynamic production car in the world, the new Audi 100. If it had the same drag factor as the average car, it would register 0.43, which would feel something like this. But the new Audi 100 actually has a drag factor of only 0.30. And naturally, the less a car has holding it back, the less fuel it needs to drive it forward. The Audi 100, the most aerodynamic production car in the world.
Welcome back. Labour MP Bob Cryer has revealed his plans to tackle the Home Office over tug-of-love children who are kidnapped and taken abroad. He wants officials to tighten passport controls to prevent one parent taking a child abroad without the agreement of the other. His move follows his successful meeting last week at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, where diplomats promised to provide more help for parents trying to get their children back from abroad. But for one mother at least, Foreign Office guidelines have been a case of too little, too late.
Linda Franco's personal nightmare began here 15 months ago in South London at the home of her mother. Linda was divorced from her Portuguese husband Jose and had sole custody of their two young sons. As the boys' grandmother was getting the car out of the garage to take them to school, Jose came up behind her and locked her in the garage by slamming the doors. He then snatched the two young children from the driveway.
I was absolutely shattered, devastated, because I knew that this time would be the final time. He'd done it twice before, and there was no way he was going to get caught a third time. I knew he would go abroad, I knew he would aim for Portugal, but I couldn't be 100% certain, so I had to have him tracked down to make sure.
Now, how much access do you have to your children now?
None. I haven't seen them since the day they went. I have telephone conversations with them about once a week, that's all.
How much help in those early days did you get from the Foreign Office?
None at all from the Foreign Office. In fact, my solicitor told me not to even bother contacting them. All you get from them is sympathy, and apart from that, you're up against a brick wall.
If the Foreign Office had been as receptive 15 months ago as perhaps they are now, do you think your children would have been back in this country?
Very likely. If I could have raised the money, of course, because they're still not coming forward with any legal aid. But certainly I could have saved on the private detective, because they, apparently according to the new guidelines, they would have traced him, tracked the children down for me, and given me a welfare report to say that they were healthy and happy.
Linda is selling her home to pay for a court battle in Portugal to get her sons Timothy and Simon back. She says she needs all the official help she can get.
Just hope that the Foreign Office are going to do what they say they're going to do, and also move forward, not leave it at this point.
Bob Cryer, how bad was the situation before the Foreign Office issued these new guidelines?
Well, I think there were many parents who justifiably complained, and I hope the Foreign Office carry the guidelines out, at the inaction and delay and in apparent indifference by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office in, for example, asking authorities abroad to trace children, in obtaining welfare reports, in, for instance, in one case, even agreeing to provide neutral ground for a mother to meet her child. So
that must be the most heartbreaking thing, actually. I mean, knowing perhaps where your child is, but simply not being able to see them.
Well, I think that, you know, the attitude of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, they were very sort of strict on protocol and said, you know, we've got to follow the international relations. It's very frustrating for a mother who wants to see her child, who's been to an English court and has gone through what's often the delicate business of arguing with a former husband and parent, and finally got the decision, then to find that that's all set at naught.
Yes.
And the Foreign and Commonwealth Office are doing very little about it.
Of course, the anger between two parties must be so extreme at that point as well. It must be difficult for her to think in.
Well, I mean, that's all been done and dusted. I mean, you know, she's got the custody order, or they've been made a ward of court, and that's one of the important points to remember, that these children have been the subject, in nearly all cases of a court decision, and they're taken out of the country against a court decision.
Ian Withers, you're a private detective who goes and snatches the children back again.
Well, we recover them. That's when we can find them, of course.
How much do you charge?
We charge a normal daily rate as per any other inquiry that we undertake. There's no additional charges for this kind of work.
£600 a day?
Oh no, our charges are on the basis of about £150 a day.
Do most parents are pretty happy to fork that out, presumably, to get their children back?
Those that can afford it. The problem, of course, is the vast majority of these unfortunate cases don't have the facilities to finance a private search for their child or children, and this, of course, is a major problem.
Are these new Foreign Office guidelines going to change your business, affect your business?
Well, I hope they'll affect it in the sense that we'll be able to get more backup in strange countries than we do at the present time. Very often we're on the other side of the world, having found a child or children, and find we're up against as much red tape there as we are anywhere else.
When you go and find one of these children, sorry, I'll let you come in a moment.
Okay.
Is it very cloak and dagger? Do you literally have to sort of creep up behind them and push them into a car? And it must be very frightening for the child.
No, it is not like that at all. In the first instance, one has to find them, and having found them and looked at the situation, the client or parent that you're acting for must then make the decision whether to institute legal proceedings in that country,
yes,
whether to recover the child or whether to negotiate.
Of course, the law is often different, isn't it, in these countries?
Well, what I was going to say was that really what's needed is the signing of the Hague Convention, the ratification of the Hague Convention and the European Convention.
Which means that every country would agree on a
which
sort of
the signatories
principle,
would agree that an English court decision would apply in their country and vice versa as well. If we get those two signed, the Foreign and Commonwealth Office are not proving exactly zealous about pursuing the matters, then in fact it means that the services of people like Mr. Withers will be hopefully completely discarded.
Bob Cryer, I hope you're successful. Ian Withers, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
David.
Thank you very much indeed, Anna. We'll be right back in a moment with our regular TV spot. Join us then.
Welcome back. One of the regular features on Good Morning Britain will be what we call the television spot, a talking point each morning about the world of television, and that means the whole world of television, including the BBC. Today, being our very first day, we thought we'd start by poking some fun at ourselves. As you no doubt know, apart from myself and David and Robert Key in the newsroom, our other presenters are Michael Parkinson, who'll be doing the weekend programmes, and Angela Rippon. So our researchers decided to dig back into the archives and find some early manifestations of all five of us in action, with a certain amount of trepidation. Here's what they came up with.
Peaceful London Square is the centre of Britain at the moment. It's certainly that in the minds of the 300-odd party workers who are busy with the general election in the headquarters of the two major political parties, behind me in the Conservative Central Office under Lord Blakenham, and over here in Labour's Transport House under Labour's Party Secretary Len Williams. Each of these two headquarters contains, of course, its own publicity department, its research department, its private TV studio, and Transport House here even has a bank inside it. What's going on inside the buildings? Well, at the moment I'd say both buildings are humming, but mainly with quiet confidence.
R. Pierce, member of the Torbay Astronomical Society. And it's from his back garden here at Barton in Torquay, with this fairly small telescope, that R. Pierce, Esquire, is making a complete survey of the solar system with particular reference to Saturn, Jupiter and Venus. And in fact the local society think so much of his work that this week they've asked him to lecture to them on the solar system. Well, it's all very highbrow, you may think, but it's even more remarkable when you realise that R. Pierce, Esquire, is in fact Raymond Pierce, who's just 12 years old. Raymond, how did you first get interested in astronomy?
This is Pontefract in Yorkshire, the hometown of the great sweet of all time, or one of the great sweets of all time, the licorice allsort. Pontefract is a monument to the British sweet tooth. For over 100 years now, the 5 factories that make licorice allsorts here have had their insatiable demand for licorice supplied by the home growers around here, but no longer is that true. They're now importing their stuff their licorice from Turkey. Consequently, the industry here has died. This is positively the last crop of licorice ever to be grown in Pontefract. When it's dug up toward the end of the year, no more. This is the end.
Number, please.
Number 242.
Could you hold on a minute, please? 750,000 trunk calls are made through the telephone system in the northwest every day. Here in Morecambe is the last fully manually operated telephone exchange, and it's closing down on November the 6th. I've talked to some of the girls who work here.
Now, Regella is also a very big star. 93,385,000,000 miles in diameter. Or to put it another way, if you were to imagine that this orange was as big as the dome of St. Paul's, then Regella is 528 million times the size of the dome of St. Paul's.
Was television really like that in those days?
It really was, and that haircut was really like that in those days. I suppose I should point out that I was playing a character there, and I didn't actually talk like that. All the while.
No, I think you should tell us who he was, because there are some children around who might not have known him.
Yes, and in fact there may well have been children watching who were frightened by that sight at the end there, I would think.
Yeah.
But they will have been impressed by that young figure who's alleged to be Michael Parkinson strolling through the fields.
Wasn't he wonderful? Thick, dark hair and about 6'2". Do you think they've put him in a sort of mincing machine or something?
Has he shrunk?
He's got shrunk, yes.
Well, you know,
the other thing I liked was Robert's suit. I mean, Robert's sartorial elegance has increased 500%, hasn't it, since he went to Marks and Spencer? Perhaps I shouldn't say that.
And you look exactly the same, you and Angela.
Well, a bit. That was 10 years ago, I think. Angela looks very much like the nice girl next door, I think. Very good.
And she still does, what's
exactly.
What. The Yeti is the next subject. The Loch Ness Monster, the Yeti, the Canadian Bigfoot, they're our inspiration. We've heard of them all, and we know where to find them or avoid them. For centuries, these strange and fabulous creatures have caught the imagination of daredevil explorers and stay-at-home storytellers. But now we come to just such a strange story, only this time it's on our doorsteps. British big cats. Thousands are said to roam wild in Britain, and they've been free here since the Ice Age. But, and here's the catch, they've never revealed themselves clearly to man. Angela Rippon reports.
Tedburn St Mary is a quiet village on the edge of Dartmoor. The residents are canny Devonians, well able to recognise the animals around them. But several now believe they have a species of wild cat in the area that resembles a leopard or a puma. Over the past few years, many people have seen the creature, including local farmer John Anthony.
I was coming home across the fields with the cows, evening milking, broad daylight, and this big cat came through the edge about 30 yards in front of me, well, trotted right through the cows. And I didn't really have no reaction. I just thought, bloody great cat, you know.
2 years ago, the local policeman, Bill Norris, went to a cottage fire outside Tedburn and saw a puma-like animal coming over this hill.
I followed the puma down through this grassland, and it was slightly bigger than a full-grown fox. Very sleek, jet black. I would imagine it was a cub rather than a full-grown puma. This cat disappeared into some brown bracken, and it was then I got the panda car and went down to the main road, down to the stream. I saw this puma on a muddy track. It then started drinking some stream water, and after a few minutes it disappeared again up through the bracken.
Di Francis, who lives locally, is convinced that these creatures exist. She spent the last 3 years searching Great Britain for the big cats and compiling evidence of hundreds of sightings. I caught up with her looking for tracks in a muddy wood outside Tedburn St Mary and asked her to describe the habitat where she's found traces of these creatures.
Where there's trees, where there's a watering place, and where it's a fairly quiet locality is where you find the cats.